In the early morning, the carriage grinds to a halt at a particular location, arresting WoonHwi's attention. He fixates on his hand, fervently contemplating how to recreate the same energy when the realization hits him like a thunderbolt: the carriage has come to a standstill. In that intense moment, the carriage door swings open with a forceful creak, and a commanding figure strides in, issuing imperative instructions to the captives. The warning echoes with a chilling intensity, underscoring that any inkling of resistance will be met with swift and unequivocal death. WoonHwi, propelled by an urgent sense of compliance, joins the procession of other children, following instructions to make their way to the forefront. Simultaneously, the short sword materializes, demanding an account of the tumult and their precise location. Without hesitation, WoonHwi unveils the grim truth: they find themselves in the notorious Six Blood Valley, a blood cult bastion where abducted children undergo ruthless training to metamorphose into blood cult warriors. With a pointed gesture towards a figure on the platform, he singles out Captain Gu Sangwon, the formidable leader of the Destruction Blood Squad, overseeing the brutal training and education regimen. In a jarring interruption, a voice calls out from behind, "Enter the two brothers from the inn." They taunt WoonHwi, deriding his knowledge even as he finds himself ensnared in the clutches of the blood cult. Spotting them, WoonHwi exclaims that he thought the two brothers had managed to escape, expressing relief at the sight of someone familiar in the grim scenario. A moment of intrigue strikes as the brothers notice WoonHwi's unbound hands, prompting them to inquire about the anomaly. WoonHwi, with an air of enigmatic complexity, replies that the explanation is a tad intricate, intensifying their curiosity. Captain O seizes control of the situation, directing everyone's attention to the platform and issuing a countdown for a sprint towards it. The realization dawns on the twin brothers that untangling the captives is crucial for their escape. They turn to WoonHwi, questioning the authenticity of his commitment to following instructions. In response, he asserts that survival dictates mirroring his actions, leaving the brothers perplexed. With unwavering determination, WoonHwi charges towards the platform without elucidating his intentions, while the bewildered others urge him to clarify his course of action. Observing the cult members unsheathing their swords, the twin brothers decide to cast their lot with WoonHwi and join the frenzied race. Abruptly, the brutality unfolds as a cult member mercilessly strikes down a child, shattering the tranquility and sending shockwaves of fear through the remaining children. Chaos ensues as the children scatter in terror while the cult members ruthlessly continue their onslaught. Undeterred, the twin brothers stay by WoonHwi's side, realizing that events are unfolding precisely as he foresaw. Convinced of his foresight, they commit to following WoonHwi's lead. Eventually, they reach the platform and genuflect before the captains, mimicking WoonHwi's actions in a display of compliance amid the ominous atmosphere. Taken aback by the synchronized kneeling of the children, the captains find themselves astounded, questioning how these youngsters instinctively know the ritual without instruction. Speculation arises, with some captains contemplating if WoonHwi is the child Captain O had reported. Recalling information, one captain concurs, citing rumors that WoonHwi bears the blood of their cult. Suddenly, the short sword makes an appearance, lauding WoonHwi's knowledge, accrediting him as a bona fide blood cult member without formal training. WoonHwi, breaking his silence, elucidates that his actions were a strategic facade to avert suspicion. He grimly emphasizes that failure to conform would result in beatings and public examples, consequences he aimed to avoid. Interrupting the tense moment, Gu Sangwon hails them, proclaiming their fortuitous selection by the will of the great blood demon. The revelation of the blood cult's existence shocks the children, who were blissfully ignorant until now. In a daring act of dissent, one child protests, condemning the blood cult for its atrocities. The short sword aligns with the dissenting voice, while WoonHwi grimly discloses that the outspoken child is destined to become an example, paying the price for speaking the truth. The short sword, visibly disturbed, seeks an explanation, unaware of WoonHwi's prior experiences. Meanwhile, the protesting child forewarns about the impending actions of the Muram Alliance. In a brutal turn of events, a cult member swiftly executes the dissenting child, leaving the short sword appalled. Despite the shock, WoonHwi calmly reveals the gruesome act as a calculated tactic, a method to instill fear and enforce unwavering loyalty among the ranks. The efficacy of this ruthless strategy becomes evident, underlining the ruthlessness of the blood cult's indoctrination methods. In a chilling tableau, the executor of the fatal blow pivots towards the other children, his voice laced with menace as he brazenly questions whether they, too, harbor the desire to speak out and meet the same grim fate. The atmosphere thickens with terror as the children, paralyzed with fear, tremble under the weight of the impending threat. Witnessing this appalling display, the short sword, aghast, demands an explanation from the executioner. She, taken aback by the gruesome trial's survival, incredulously inquires about the harrowing ordeal. His response is a revelation of a dark pact: he submitted to the blood cult, sacrificing autonomy for a mere 10 additional years of life. The gravity of his submission casts a shadow over the unfolding horror. As the captain takes charge, a proclamation cuts through the ominous air: the commencement of the blood-curdling cult admission ceremony. His authoritative voice resonates, drawing attention to the mysterious box. The spotlight falls on WoonHwi as the captain beckons him, querying about the box's contents. WoonHwi, with a heavy heart, discloses the ominous truth within: the blood parasite. The executioner, now an ominous figure, directs WoonHwi to elucidate the nature of the blood parasite to the captive audience. WoonHwi, his voice fraught with the weight of malevolence, details the blood parasite's horror, a venomous insect strategically nestled deep within one's chest, a sinister guardian ensuring unwavering loyalty. Upon this revelation, the short sword coldly declares that WoonHwi's cover has been blown wide open, exposing him as a spy for the blood cult in his previous life. Extracting one of the blood parasites from the ominous box, the executioner extends an unsettling offer to WoonHwi, an opportunity to showcase loyalty to the cult by willingly receiving the blood parasite before his fellow captives. Bowls his head, WoonHwi grapples with the grim reality that refusal could seal his fate with death. The weight of survival dictates compliance, and with a heavy heart, he concedes, deeming the act a perverse honor. The disturbing spectacle unfolds as he swallows the blood parasite, all while Captain O observes from a distance. As the unsettling ritual transpires, Captain O contemplates the enigmatic connection between WoonHwi and Captain Gu Sangwon. Despite unproven kinship, a knowing smile graces Captain O's lips, confidently asserting that the truth will soon surface, now that preparations are complete. His gaze shifts towards WoonHwi, who completes the grotesque act of ingesting the blood parasite. Having consumed the parasite, WoonHwi pays homage to the blood cult. Captain O, impressed, remarks that WoonHwi's spirit is truly befitting of a genuine descendant of the blood cult. The captain then directs the remaining children to step forward one by one and receive their own blood parasites, having witnessed the unsettling precedent. Meanwhile, the short sword queries WoonHwi about living with the blood parasite for a decade. WoonHwi acknowledges the agonizing truth, revealing that the repulsive sensation has resurfaced within just 15 days of his new life. Suddenly, searing pain engulfs his chest, accompanied by a burning sensation throughout his body, leaving him bewildered and disoriented. In his confusion, WoonHwi gazes at Captain O, contemplating if some action on his part triggered the unexpected turmoil. Collapsing to the ground, he grapples with the unprecedented agony, prompting Captain O to approach and inquire about the blood parasite's rampage. Lying prone, WoonHwi ponders the nature of the alterations inflicted upon the parasite within him, shrouded in the ominous mysteries of the blood cult's sacred ceremony. Concerned, Captain Sangwon turns to Captain O, seeking reassurance about WoonHwi's well-being. Captain O, with a calm demeanor, assures him that WoonHwi is fine but explains that the blood parasite he swallowed was intentionally provoked. Meanwhile, WoonHwi, grappling with the aftermath, wonders how he could endure such an act, especially since it's not his first time swallowing the blood parasite. With Captain O's assistance, WoonHwi is helped to his feet. Captain O instructs him to turn his back so that he can use his chi to pacify the agitated blood parasite. This perplexes WoonHwi, prompting Captain O to reveal the urgency of the situation, emphasizing that he can't keep the other trainees waiting. Urged to turn his back, WoonHwi complies, questioning if Captain O was responsible for the unsettling turmoil. As Captain O begins his chi intervention, WoonHwi senses the pain descending. Interrupting the process, he insists he's fine, halting Captain O's actions despite the warning of potential internal injuries. Captain O, charging his hand with chi once more, advises WoonHwi to tighten his abdomen while contemplating the unfamiliar pain. WoonHwi, suspicious of the discomfort, decides to put an end to Captain O's intervention. Stopping Captain O again, WoonHwi unexpectedly releases a fart, stunning the captain. He asserts his well-being, frustratingly reiterating that he had already communicated his fine state. The short sword bursts into laughter, finding humor in the unexpected turn of events, while WoonHwi implores her to cease the teasing. The short sword, finding amusement in WoonHwi's antics, confesses that he has brought entertainment to an otherwise dull environment. Frustrated by her relentless teasing, WoonHwi clutches his chest, only to realize that all his pain has dissipated, leaving him feeling significantly better. In a sudden turn of events, Chwabek, one of the twin brothers, accusatorily singles out WoonHwi as the blood cult spy, demanding answers about their destination. Undeterred, WoonHwi asserts that he doesn't possess omniscient knowledge of their circumstances. Simultaneously, the short sword, visibly shocked by Chwabek's damning accusation, passionately reminds him that he, too, has ingested a blood parasite for survival. Chwabek levels charges of deception against WoonHwi, insinuating that he sought attention through such actions. In response, WoonHwi challenges the logic behind trying to impress the blood cult. Amidst the escalating tension, Captain O interjects, summoning them for the imminent grade evaluation. His stern directive admonishes them against causing any disturbance, urging strict adherence to instructions. As WoonHwi turns towards Captain O, a recollection surfaces. He had experienced a similar scenario orchestrated by another captain in his previous life. He contemplates whether recent events triggered this notable change. Captain O elucidates the evaluation process, revealing cult examiners stationed in each cave behind him. The children are to be rigorously assessed, and their performance will determine whether they receive a basic, intermediate, or advanced plaque. Urging them to strive for excellence, Captain O underscores the cult's profound emphasis on strength. He points to the significance of the blue waistband he wears, indicating that those adorned with it are recognized as advanced-grade warriors. Further explanation follows. Advanced grade warriors, acknowledged for their exceptional efforts, have their blood parasites removed. The importance of gaining recognition echoes loudly. The revelation stirs eagerness among the children, driven by the desire to rid themselves of the blood parasites. Yet, WoonHwi, with a deeper understanding, recognizes the ominous truth, that this pursuit of recognition is the insidious path leading them into the clutches of the blood cult. In a sudden twist, the captain holding a flute reveals a mischievous smile, capturing WoonHwi's attention and signaling his intent to administer punishment for their disturbance. As the haunting melody emanates from the flute, WoonHwi instinctively covers his ears, leaving the twin brothers surprised and perplexed. Inquisitive, they question WoonHwi about his peculiar reaction, asserting that while the flute's sound may be loud, it isn't unbearable. However, their curiosity swiftly turns to bewilderment as intense pain grips their chests, a sensation shared by all the children. Amidst the confusion, the short sword seeks an explanation from WoonHwi. He clarifies that the flute, when played, triggers the blood parasites within their bodies to go on a rampage. Lying down alongside the writhing children, WoonHwi ponders why he remains unaffected, a mystery that adds to the enigma surrounding him. Observing the children on the ground, Captain O ceases playing the flute, emphasizing that his earlier mention of being advanced grade warriors was merely a customary practice. He shatters their hopes, revealing that only a select few will attain that level, while the majority will endure a lifetime with the relentless torment of the blood parasites, a revelation that leaves them in shock. Commanded to rise, the children comply, sitting in a row. Meanwhile, WoonHwi grapples with the uncertainty of whether he harbors a blood parasite within his body. The short sword speculates that his act of covering his ears might be the reason for his apparent immunity. However, WoonHwi asserts that even with this precaution, he struggles to exert complete control over the rampage, lamenting the hindrance caused by the destruction of his dantian. Suddenly, Chwabek declares that there's no turning back after swallowing the blood parasite. Driven by a thirst for revenge, he vows to become an advanced grade warrior, surpass WoonHwi in martial prowess, and settle the score. WoonHwi, bewildered by this sudden turn of events, struggles to comprehend Chwabek's newfound determination. The captain, unfazed by the unfolding tension, announces that Chwabek will be the first to undergo the evaluation. Perplexed, the short sword speculates on whether Chwabek's eagerness stems from WoonHwi's perceived lack of a proper response. WoonHwi himself remains uncertain about Chwabek's motivations. As Chwabek steps forward, he defiantly declares his intent to prove himself without WoonHwi's assistance. However, the captain abruptly and forcefully punches him, emphasizing the importance of following instructions. The captain's stern warning echoes as Chwabek lies on the ground, a stark reminder to all the children. After reiterating his instructions, the captain shifts the focus to WoonHwi, summoning him to be the first to undergo the grade evaluations. Confused and wary of the captain's intentions, WoonHwi feels a sense of foreboding. As he enters the cave, he can't shake the feeling that the captain is orchestrating another challenge, making his journey even more arduous. In the midst of WoonHwi's uncertainty, the captain probes, asking if he has any complaints. To this, WoonHwi responds with an expression of gratitude, thanking the captain for his supposed kindness. The cave's shadows cast an air of déjà vu, intensifying the gravity of the impending assessment. The short sword, ever inquisitive, probes WoonHwi about the grade plaque he earned in his previous life. With candor, he unveils the harsh reality of a basic grade, a designation that relegated him to menial tasks and disposable labor. The short sword empathizes, recognizing the hardship etched into WoonHwi's past. Abruptly, the examiner standing before WoonHwi questions his identity, sending a jolt of surprise through him. As recognition dawns, WoonHwi realizes that this seemingly young examiner is someone he knew from his previous life, someone who held a position of authority over him. The short sword, eager for revelations, questions WoonHwi about his acquaintance's squad affiliation. WoonHwi unveils the truth, the Blood Wolf Squad, the very captain who once commanded him. Suddenly, Captain O emerges from the shadows, demanding an answer to the inquiry about WoonHwi's origin in Yulan County. WoonHwi, sensing the trap laid by Captain O, remains resolute. He believes that deceiving this acquaintance, someone he knew intimately, should be a straightforward task, especially after successfully fooling the unfamiliar Blood Star. With an air of confidence, WoonHwi greets the captain, introduces himself as WoonHwi, and spins a tale about hearing tales of the captain from his grandfather. However, Captain O, unimpressed and wielding his sword, rejects the narrative as an obvious fabrication. Undeterred, WoonHwi doubles down, asserting his familial connection to the Blood Wolf Squad through his grandfather. Captain O, skeptical and unsatisfied, challenges WoonHwi to reveal his true identity, unraveling the web of deception. Advancing menacingly, Captain O tightens his grip around WoonHwi's neck, asserting that WoonHwi must harbor a death wish. Undeterred, WoonHwi maintains his fabricated tale, accentuating his grandfather's service and the captain's rise from the depths of the Blood Wolf Squad. The captain, however, sees through the deceit, recalling the warriors who served under his father and exposing WoonHwi's deception. Witnessing the escalating confrontation, the short sword implores WoonHwi to summon her into action. Sensing the futility, WoonHwi hesitates, suggesting that a conversation might yield a more favorable outcome. Yet, in a strategic maneuver, the short sword redirects his attention downward, revealing an impending surprise sword attack. Swiftly responding, WoonHwi defends himself with his short sword, averting the ambush. In the blink of an eye, an overwhelming force presses against WoonHwi's back, leaving him astounded by the assailant's speed. A powerful kick from the captain lands, propelling WoonHwi into a cave wall and forcing blood from his lips. Despite the brutal impact, WoonHwi summons resilience, remarking to the short sword that the kick lacks sufficient force. Undeterred by his injuries, WoonHwi rises, acknowledging the captain's enduring ruthlessness. The short sword, concerned, inquires about his well-being, and WoonHwi, brushing off the severity, claims readiness for the impending onslaught. As Captain O advances for another strike, the short sword urges WoonHwi to focus, unaware that a dizzying blur clouds his vision. Unveiling the aftermath of the collision, she directs him to defend against the captain's relentless assault. Balancing on unsteady ground, the short sword urgently alerts WoonHwi to an imminent horizontal slash aimed at his neck. Bracing for impact, he manages to block the forceful assault but succumbs to its strength, collapsing to the ground. Grateful for the short sword's intervention, he rises once more, expressing his thanks. However, the realization strikes him, his sword, crucial for communication with the short sword, lies scattered at a distance, out of reach. As he contemplates the consequences of this setback, a looming presence approaches. WoonHwi turns to face the captain, who asserts dominance by placing a foot on WoonHwi's chest, demanding an explanation for WoonHwi's knowledge about him. Seizing the opportunity for dialogue, WoonHwi counters with a proposition, inquiring if the captain is not interested in finding his younger sister. The captain, surprised by WoonHwi's boldness, acknowledges the information WoonHwi possesses but solemnly reveals that his sister has already passed away. Undeterred, WoonHwi challenges this claim, asserting that the burned corpse he encountered was not his sister but a decoy. To entice the captain into cooperation, WoonHwi proposes a deal, the captain's sister's location in exchange for their collaboration. The captain, eyeing the short sword and recognizing the validity of WoonHwi's knowledge, lowers his own sword, willing to entertain WoonHwi's proposition. With an air of cooperation, the captain concedes, allowing WoonHwi to divulge his sister's whereabouts, the Flower Moon Merchant Association. The stage is set for a high-stakes negotiation between the two adversaries. Upon learning that the Flower Moon Merchant Association is under the jurisdiction of the solitary blood saint, the captain remains hesitant to attribute his father's death to this figure. WoonHwi stands firm, asserting that the orchestrator behind his father's demise and the manipulator seeking to control the Blood Wolf Squad is none other than the solitary blood saint, Jang Ryong. Doubting WoonHwi's first-hand knowledge, the captain challenges him, questioning whether WoonHwi personally witnessed the evidence. The captain insists that the wounds on his father's body were inflicted by the Orthodox sect. Unfazed, WoonHwi points out that the information about his father's injuries and the retrieval of his body came from the Flower Moon Merchant Association, specifically Ho Wool, their leader. As the captain begins to waver, WoonHwi recognizes the need for a final persuasive push. Revealing the exact location of the captain's sister, Jinhai County Branch in Zhejiang, he urges the captain to dispatch trusted individuals to confirm this crucial information. Intrigued, the captain queries WoonHwi about his identity. WoonHwi, treating the revelation as the culmination of their deal, requests the captain's assistance whenever he requires it in the future. To solidify their agreement, the captain solemnly declares that if WoonHwi's information proves false, he will personally take WoonHwi's head. Unfaltering, WoonHwi assures the captain of his truthfulness and extends his hand in a gesture of hope and trust. Accepting the terms cautiously, the captain acknowledges his lingering skepticism but vows that if WoonHwi's assertions turn out to be true, he will regard him as a benefactor for the rest of his life. A pact forged, their destinies entwined, WoonHwi extends his hopes for the captain to reunite with his sister, sealing the fragile alliance. Expressing his gratitude, WoonHwi reflects on the captain's generosity, attributing the foundation of trust to the captain's magnanimity from his previous life. Examining his hand, WoonHwi discovers a middle-rank plaque, a token of recognition bestowed by the captain for successfully blocking his attacks twice. The captain affirms WoonHwi's merit, acknowledging his skill in the evaluation. Inquisitive about the source of information regarding his personality, the captain questions whether WoonHwi truly heard about him from his grandfather. WoonHwi, teasingly, counters with a question about the captain's belief in such a statement. Casually resheathing his sword, the captain playfully engages, admitting that he can play along, yet subtly pondering WoonHwi's intelligence. The captain, further intrigued by WoonHwi's candid revelations, notes that WoonHwi divulged information without hesitation, even omitting his grandfather's name. Unfazed by the apparent mystery surrounding WoonHwi's intentions, the captain expresses a willingness to trust him for this particular instance, despite not fully comprehending WoonHwi's motives. As the captain retrieves his short sword from the mud, the short sword herself contemplates WoonHwi's remarkable survival through the challenging evaluation, emphasizing the captain's luck. With a calm and mature demeanor, WoonHwi moves away, leaving the captain to gaze at him with a sense of intrigue. Reflecting on WoonHwi's ability to block attacks even with closed eyes, the captain entertains the notion that someone might be aiding him, acknowledging the uncanny familiarity he feels towards WoonHwi. Perplexed yet unable to harbor dislike, the captain contemplates the enigma that is WoonHwi. Outside the cavern, Captain O takes charge of overseeing the remaining trainees, organizing them into lines based on their ranks. He directs those with middle ranks to follow him, ensuring a structured arrangement. Unexpectedly, WoonHwi emerges from the cave, catching Chwabek off guard. Chwabek, intrigued by the middle-rank plaque in WoonHwi's possession, inquires about its origin, seeking an explanation for WoonHwi's newfound recognition. While trudging through the valley in Captain O's wake, Chwabek confronts WoonHwi with a potent blend of confusion and frustration. He vehemently questions how someone seemingly feeble and powerless, like WoonHwi, could attain the prestigious intermediate rank plaque. His inquiry drips with skepticism, insinuating that WoonHwi may have leveraged his blood cult membership for special privileges. Frustrated by the perceived injustice of being on equal footing with WoonHwi, Chwabek defiantly asserts his determination to triumph in the upcoming test, an assertion punctuated by the short sword's observation of his intense competitiveness. Caught in the crossfire of scrutiny, WoonHwi finds himself under the captain's watchful eye. The captain, though acknowledging WoonHwi's survival after facing the Blood Wolf Squad captain, senses an unsettling aura around him. WoonHwi anticipates the captain's potential frustration, considering the loss of an excuse after the Blood Wolf Squad captain verifies his true identity as a blood cult descendant. Shifting the narrative, the short sword probes WoonHwi about his post-ceremony plans. WoonHwi, enigmatic in his responses, discloses a desire to seize an opportunity to mend his energy core. Intrigued, the short sword seeks clarity on his methods, to which WoonHwi cryptically asserts he has his own ways. Steering the conversation towards the mystical, all-healing divine physician, WoonHwi unfolds a tale of a figure capable of curing anything for a price, even restoring someone's energy core. He drops a bombshell about the physician's imminent arrival in the Six Blood Valley in 10 days, prompting the short sword to assume WoonHwi plans to pay the price for healing. However, her frustration flares when she realizes WoonHwi has left his funds at the inn, entertaining the unsettling notion that he might resort to selling her for the necessary money. Observing WoonHwi's peculiar behavior, Chwabek is left wondering if he needs to replicate the same actions. Meanwhile, WoonHwi confides in the short sword about his plan to procure a specific herb as payment for the divine physician's services. He reveals that in 10 days, the renowned healer will request this herb, the location of which he has already uncovered, impressing the short sword with his strategic foresight. Continuing their journey under Captain O's guidance, they eventually arrive at a gruesome scene, a landscape littered with lifeless bodies sprawled everywhere. Horrified by the sight, the captain orders everyone to halt and demands an explanation for the carnage. In the midst of the eerie tableau, a burly figure with his back turned emerges, holding someone in his grasp and berating them as useless. The captain, undeterred, calls out to the mysterious figure and inquires about his identity. With a swift turn, the imposing individual discards the person in his hands and greets the newcomers enthusiastically. Reacting swiftly, the captain urges the trainees to take cover behind him and unsheathes his sword. However, before he can make a move, the enigmatic figure effortlessly seizes the captain's hand, instructs him to step aside, and delivers a devastating punch that sends the captain sprawling to the ground. WoonHwi, witnessing the captain's defeat with a single strike, finds the situation ludicrous. As he contemplates the power displayed by the assailant, he speculates that even their commander, a first-rate martial master, would likely be outmatched. Puzzled by the identity of this formidable martial master, WoonHwi grapples with the realization that he hasn't encountered such strength in his previous life. Facing the bewildered trainees, Chwabek questions if their captain is dead. In response, WoonHwi urges him to remain silent, clarifying that the captain is merely unconscious. Abruptly, the imposing figure claps his hands, generating a powerful surge of wind that hits the trainees with tremendous force. WoonHwi, like the other children, clutches his ears in response to the intense wind pressure, unleashing a collective scream of discomfort. As their screams echo, the person callously dismisses them as utterly useless. The short sword, deeply concerned for WoonHwi, urgently inquires about his well-being. WoonHwi, revealing the sensation of his eardrums being torn apart in his inability to hear, suddenly experiences bleeding ears and dizziness. Just when the brink of unconsciousness looms, a surge of searing energy in his chest halts the ringing in his ears and miraculously heals his wounds. Looking up, WoonHwi witnesses Chwabek courageously standing before the formidable figure, seemingly attempting to shield his brother. WoonHwi, however, believes that Chwabek should have remained down, avoiding further harm. To their collective surprise, the person starts laughing, proclaiming that Chwabek has passed, an assertion that leaves Chwabek bewildered. In an abrupt turn, the person raises his fist, delivering a devastating blow to Chwabek's head, sending him crashing to the ground, lifeless. Seeing this unfold, the short sword urgently queries WoonHwi about his mobility. WoonHwi, recognizing the urgency, rises to his feet, prompting the short sword to implore him to run faster. Yet, even as he attempts to flee, the person, with lightning speed, overtakes him and raises his leg to strike, rendering WoonHwi feeling utterly helpless. After what feels like an eternity, faint voices calling out to Captain O rouse WoonHwi back to consciousness. Opening his eyes, he finds Commander Gu Sangwon seated before him. Surveying the scene of heavily wounded children, the commander, puzzled, inquires about the ordeal. In response, the captain recounts the appearance of a barbarian, a force so formidable that it effortlessly incapacitated him with a single blow. Describing the scruffy hair, imposing stature, and tiger skin attire of the assailant, the commander contemplates the gravity of the situation. As the commander vividly describes the appearance of the assailant, hey action, the commander's demeanor undergoes a notable change. The captain, perplexed, queries if the commander possesses any knowledge about this mysterious figure. In a revelation that leaves the captain bewildered, the commander discloses that that person was the one who assaulted him and abducted the children. Identifying him as Hey Action, one of the four supremes and a member of the blood cult renowned for his eccentric nature, the commander paints a grim picture of the formidable adversary they now face. Meanwhile, in another location, Action sits with WoonHwi's short sword in hand, casually remarking on WoonHwi's search for it as WoonHwi regains consciousness, turning his gaze toward Action. With the twin brothers still incapacitated, WoonHwi rises to his feet. Action, seemingly surprised by the resilience of someone with a broken energy core, acknowledges WoonHwi's ability to endure his formidable attack and swiftly regain consciousness. Wearing a smile, Action cryptically declares that things have taken an interesting turn from that moment onward. With the undeniable revelation of Action's identity, the commander and the captain sprint up the mountain with a sense of urgency, seeking an audience with this formidable figure. Along the ascent, the captain, weighed down by remorse, apologizes to the commander, attributing the entire calamity to his own negligence. However, the commander, aware of the enigmatic authority of the Supreme Elder, responds with a stoic acknowledgement that there's little anyone can do to influence such a figure. Fueled by apprehension, the captain expresses hope that Action hasn't brought harm to the kidnapped intermediate rank cadets, a rare and valuable asset. Undeterred by uncertainty surrounding WoonHwi, the captain staunchly asserts the potential of the twin brothers, emphasizing their capability to ascend even to the highest ranks. In response, the commander, grappling with his own uncertainties, reflects on the unexpected actions of the person they face, especially considering the impact on the cadets. As they approach the dwelling of Action, the commander, with a tone of caution, advises the captain to tread carefully in his words, portraying Action as the most eccentric and challenging among the formidable quartet of Supremes. Upon reaching the entrance of Action's abode, the commander pays his respects and introduces himself as the overseer of the 6 Blood Valley cadets. Casting a look at the captain, the commander prompts him to do the same before taking a seat. However, met with unresponsive silence from within, the captain contemplates entering for a closer look. The commander, opting for patience, dissuades the captain from rash actions, urging him to avoid provoking Action. Suddenly, a gust brings forth an unexpected projectile from within, intercepted by the commander's sword, revealing itself to be a seed. Meanwhile, Action, engrossed in his fruit consumption, offers a peculiar remark about the commander's decency, to which the commander responds with humble acceptance of his perceived insignificance before such a supreme being. Action, inquiring about their presence, questions if they've come for the sake of the kids. The commander affirms, stating their intention to nurture these youngsters into warriors of the blood cult. In response, Action challenges the commander's assumption that he might harm the children, expressing that he brought them merely to impart a few skills, alleviating the commander's concerns. Stunned, the commander contemplates the notion that Action, who has never taken disciples before, might personally instruct these kids. Graciously acknowledging this, the commander congratulates Action on his decision to mentor them. However, Action dispels any misunderstanding, revealing that he's merely using the children to stave off his loneliness in this secluded place. Apologizing, the commander seeks forgiveness, while the captain, absorbed in awe, contemplates the profound experience of learning even a few tricks from such a supreme elder. Recognizing the invaluable opportunity at hand, the captain interjects, bringing attention to WoonHwi's destroyed energy core. The commander, perplexed by the captain's motives, watches as he argues that WoonHwi is unworthy of receiving instruction from the elder. In response, Action, nonchalantly tossing a half-eaten fruit in the captain's direction, inflicts intense pain, causing him to collapse. Unyielding, Action asserts his decision to teach WoonHwi, dismissing any objections and instructing them to leave, expressing his reluctance to entertain further discussion. Complying with Action's directive, the commander and the captain withdraw, carrying a sense of disappointment for losing promising cadets along with the significant tasks they had in mind for them. Remaining seated, Action contemplates their departure as too noisy. In the meantime, WoonHwi, recalling his past life when Action had taught the twin brothers, questions why Action brought him along this time. As WoonHwi ponders, Action rises with a short sword in hand, expressing his hunger after their conversation. He instructs WoonHwi to procure food within 4 hours, leaving WoonHwi to wonder if his sole purpose was to serve this function. Approaching WoonHwi, Action warns against any attempt to escape, emphasizing severe consequences if caught. Although intimidated, WoonHwi resolves to escape when the opportunity arises. Attempting to dissuade Action, WoonHwi claims ignorance of martial arts and highlights the difficulty of finding food without a weapon. He mentions that the short sword Action is holding is his mother's keepsake, prompting Action to hurl it at WoonHwi's head. Referring to WoonHwi as cunning, Action expresses disinterest in the worn-out weapon. WoonHwi thanks Action for returning it. As the sword approaches WoonHwi, the short sword, now conscious, vents her frustration at being used by Action to pick his teeth, finding the act repulsive. Meanwhile, Action approaches the still unconscious twin brothers, casually stepping on their faces and remarking on the duration of their slumber. After a while, Action lifts the bruised twin brothers, expressing his desire for a meaty meal, and abruptly heads towards the cave's exit, vanishing with the twins. As WoonHwi emerges from the cave, he wonders about Action's whereabouts and senses a powerful gust of wind. Realizing he's in an extremely perilous location atop the mountain, he recalls Action's 4-hour time limit, contemplating the challenge of descending within that time frame. While pondering where to find meat in this treacherous place, the short sword points to something at his side. Turning to look, WoonHwi sees Action leaping from one mountain to another, carrying the twin brothers. Observing Action's formidable strength and energy, the short sword questions if WoonHwi can escape from such a person, to which he admits losing all motivation. Determined not to succumb to becoming Action's slave, WoonHwi decides to cling to hope and begins the daunting descent down the mountain, ready to do whatever it takes. However, as he starts the descent, he finds the mountain incredibly steep, questioning how others manage to escape. Suddenly, the stone he's holding breaks, causing him to fall. During the fall, he grabs a tree branch, saving himself. Clutching onto the branch, he contemplates the closeness to death and yearns to regain his internal energy, questioning the arduousness of his life. Encouraged by the short sword, he notes that at least the fall aided his rapid descent, fueling his frustration. Hanging there, he considers how far he has come but avoids seeking an exact measurement from the short sword, aware it would only demotivate him. 4 hours later, as WoonHwi ascends the mountain again, he finds Action waiting, angered by his lingering and disregard for warnings, asking if he's ready to die. In response, WoonHwi, climbing up, claims he missed him, leaving Action perplexed. Deep within the forest, a rabbit gracefully moves about when suddenly, an arrow strikes it, causing its swift demise. The skilled archer behind the shot is none other than WoonHwi, now significantly stronger and more proficient in his archery skills. The short sword appreciates his improved abilities, to which WoonHwi attributes to his more than 2 months of living on the mountain. He reflects on the initial hardships, remembering the beatings he endured when attempting to descend the mountain. Picking up the lifeless rabbit, the short sword recalls a time when WoonHwi was punished for trying to escape. He dismisses it as a distant memory, stating that it happened a long time ago. Recalling her hope for his success that day, WoonHwi agrees, determined to catch a few more rabbits. Suddenly, Action descends behind him, and WoonHwi acknowledges his early arrival, mentioning his intention to return to the cave. In response, the Supreme Elder inquires about WoonHwi's catch, noting his empty stomach. WoonHwi proudly presents the hunted rabbits, declaring that tonight's dinner will be grilled rabbit. Counting only 2 rabbits, Action remarks on the need to reduce the number of mouths to feed if the food is scarce. Swiftly, he raises his fist and delivers a powerful blow, hitting WoonHwi so hard that he ends up hanging upside down from the mountain, serving as a punishment. While hanging there, WoonHwi considers it to be so sickening and wonders why the Supreme Elder is doing it, thinking that he might be doing it for some reason. He remembers that for the last 2 months, he has lived like a slave, getting down the cliff every day with a high chance of dying if he even slips a little. After getting down, he searched for food throughout the forest every day, getting beaten up at the end, no matter if he found the food or not. On the days he fainted after getting beaten up, he was tied upside down to a tree, which caused blood to gather in his head. Stating that he has gotten quite used to this kind of treatment, he reaches for his feet to untie the rope. Just then, Chwabek calls him from above, asking if he failed to catch food for that day and revealing that he and his brother got beaten up because of that. Looking at his terrible state, WoonHwi states that they would have gotten beaten up even if it were not for him. In response, Chwabek informs him that the elder is looking for him. This makes WoonHwi wonder why he is calling out to him so early that day when the short sword mentions that it is 2 hours earlier than the usual time. As he goes inside, the elder tells him to take off his shirt, making him confused. Having no other choice but to comply, he does it, and the elder examines his body. Thinking that it is about 2 months, the elder states that it seems like he is ready. While he stands there confused about what he means, the short sword states that his body has gotten a lot better by climbing the cliff, hunting, and hanging from the tree. Turning to Chwabek, the elder says that he will go and get food from tomorrow, but he replies that it was something WoonHwi was supposed to do. In response, the elder suddenly kicks him in the face, causing him to crash into one of the cave walls. He emphasizes the importance of following his instructions without making excuses. As the elder rises, he commands the other brother to properly grill the rabbits in his absence. Observing the twin brothers' hair loss, WoonHwi briefly sympathizes with them but quickly dismisses it, considering such concerns irrelevant. The elder approaches WoonHwi, firmly grabbing his clothing, and with incredible speed, leaps down the mountain. Startled, WoonHwi questions the necessity of such a rapid descent, suggesting a more straightforward walk. In response, the elder accuses him of sounding cocky and emphasizes that this endurance is essential because WoonHwi lacks the ability to use Qinggong. With a swift motion, the elder hurls WoonHwi into a stream beneath the mountain, causing him to sink before resurfacing. Taking a deep breath, WoonHwi questions the elder's motives, and the elder reveals they are on their way to meet his master. The elder expresses a reluctance to present WoonHwi in such a pathetic state. Surprised, WoonHwi wonders about the identity of this mysterious person. The short sword humorously remarks that the elder, in fact, looks worse than WoonHwi. They continue their discussion as the elder instructs WoonHwi to come out of the water, leading them to climb the mountain once again, with WoonHwi silently following the elder's lead. Surprised by the revelation of a hidden place behind the waterfall, the short sword eagerly questions if someone actually resides there, while WoonHwi speculates that the inhabitant must be a hermit. The short sword adds that the person living there is likely a formidable martial artist, a statement that WoonHwi doubts. Believing that the person they are about to meet is the elder's close friend, WoonHwi questions whether that person can be considered normal. As they venture deeper into a cave, the elder abruptly halts at a distance from a figure seated inside. He turns to WoonHwi and instructs him to pay his respects promptly, unveiling that the person seated before them will be his master from now on. Complying, WoonHwi kneels down and pays his respects, while the short sword comments that the person might not acknowledge his greetings. Confused, WoonHwi looks up and is shocked to see the person dead and transformed into a mere skeleton, clutching a sword in its hand. Doubting if the elder is referring to this skeleton, WoonHwi turns to him and asks if he is playing a trick on him. Laughing, the elder asks why he would do such a thing. The elder then asks if WoonHwi hasn't noticed the changes in himself over the past 2 months. He points out that WoonHwi has grown stronger by climbing the cliff, increased his stamina through hunting, and developed a tougher body by enduring beatings. The elder also mentions that the exercise of hanging from trees was meant for him to train his center of balance and his core. Revealing his true intentions, the elder explains that everything he has done so far has been to build WoonHwi's physical strength in order to learn martial arts. Upon hearing this, WoonHwi confesses that he lost his energy core due to a chi deviation in his youth. Laughing, the elder asks if WoonHwi thinks he would have trained him without knowing his condition and reveals that there is a way to control internal energy without an energy core. Shocked by this revelation, WoonHwi turns to the elder and asks if such a method truly exists.